I'll start with a quick review for this book. I Hear You. The reason I give this book 3 and not 2 is because it was short. I'm usually a big fan of short books because those long books could be much shorter than they are right now. So whoever is trying to make their book shorter and not bigger or longer than it should be, I think it's usually good. And he did a pretty good job of shortening this book. So hours of listening was less than 3, so it's pretty good. And that's why he got a 3. But other than that, not that many lessons that I got out of this book, and I didn't really like that style of writing, a little bit in your face, and not much new information. So we took like some random or pop self-development ideas and just put them down in different form. So nothing crazy. Let's see the notes. Good relationships have high ratio of turning towards the other side bids with excitement. So how many bids when the other person is talking to us or starting a bid, how many of them are with excitement over with no excitement? So the more excitement there is for bids, the better the relationship. People need to be validated, not only to be heard. So being heard is not enough. They have to be validated. That's one of his main points in this book. Validation is reassuring the emotion of the other person, is let them know that it's all right to feel that specific emotion. Side note, real examples in this book are helpful. So they have a lot of examples, which means it's kind of a conversation between two people, which is really helpful, I think. In general, I think theory is not as good as actual example. Even stories are not good as actual examples. Preferably examples that are not too complicated, because sometimes stories tend to be a little complicated. According to the author, people are looking for validation. The question is if that's always the case. Some people are looking for solutions. So that's what the author said. People are always looking for validation. The question I have here is that always the case? Because sometimes people are not looking for validation. They're really looking for a solution. You always say, no, it's always validation. You have to validate them. And people are not. I think he says a few times people are not looking for solutions. But I think sometimes people are looking for solutions in situations that a solution has to be found. Validation is not agreeing with the other side. I think it's a good point. The fact that you validating their emotion doesn't mean that you agree with them. Giving advice is not always helping when people vent. That's the same idea. Giving them advice is not the best solution. I would agree with that most times it's not, but I think sometimes people are looking for a solution when they're lost in some way. Asking the person before providing an unsolicited advice. I think he says that it's good to ask the person before giving you want to hear I have this advice or something like that, instead of just giving them unsolicited advice. I think it could be a good practice. Side note, the book feels a bit disorganized. It was like something there felt like, what are you trying to get here? It's like back and forth. All of a sudden it's changing subject. It felt a little disorganized to me. Sometimes people do not want to talk about it. Quick validation and offering to talk about it in the future could be helpful. Many times it happens when a serious event happens in that person's life, and we don't have to talk about it for that long. So just since they sometimes don't want to talk about it for that long. So quick validation, let them know. Or if you can always talk to me about it in the future, is it could be very helpful for that person. Validation is important when talking to kids, since using rationality often does not work. With kids, rationality or explaining them why they are wrong is not helpful. Therefore, validating them, validating their emotions is important. Side note, the summaries at the end of those chapters are helpful. So he has, in most chapters, he has this summary, and I think it's very good practice, very good that they do that. I think also good for them because sometimes authors are getting lost in their chapter and they're adding all kinds of stuff that are unrelated. So even for them to write that summary is already good because then the chapter is a little more organized, even though it still felt a little disorganized. But overall, so I think it's a good, interesting, short book. So there is some things to learn there, but I really didn't like the style and didn't agree with some of what he said. But mostly well written in terms of the summaries or the examples, but in other places it wasn't as much. So I'll leave it on 3, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.